Hi everyone, my name is Karen, this is my channel RatherBeReading, and today I'm bringing to you my marked as to read video for April. So this is a series of videos where I just sit down and talk to you guys about all the books that I marked as to read on Goodreads over the past month. And as I went to sit down to film this video, I thought this would be a much quicker video and that I didn't think I'd marked too many books as to read. It'd be a bit of a quicker one. And then I had a look and counted up how many books I marked as to read in the past month, and there are 17. Because I really have a problem, and apparently I mark a lot of books as to read, which I think is becoming evident from these videos. So anyway, let's just jump straight in and talk about all the books that I marked as to read this month. The first book that I marked as to read this month was Reign of Shadows by Sophie Jordan. This is a book that I've just heard a bit about on BookTube over the last little while, and it sounds really, really interesting. I believe this follows a young girl who I think may be blind. I think I've heard that, but I'm not 100% sure, who lives in a world where there's been like an eclipse for like the past 17 years, so it is a dark world, and her parents, the king and queen, were murdered, and she's been hiding in a tower ever since. It just sounds really intriguing, and I have heard mostly positive things about it, and it just sounds like something that I would really enjoy picking up, so I definitely marked this one as to read this month. The next book I have to talk about is The Unquiet by Janine Garci. This is a book that I actually just saw kind of in the Goodreads recommendation section on my Goodreads. And this is a book that follows a girl who I believe has bipolar, and she believes that she killed her grandmother, and she moves to a new school following, I think, a suicide attempt. So definitely, obviously, trigger warnings for mental illness and suicidal thoughts and things like that. And she moves to this new school. People believe that the new house that she's moved into is haunted. They believe that an area of the school is haunted. There's some kind of seance that happens. I don't really know too much more details than that, but all of those details that I do know sound extremely intriguing, and I really hope to check this one out at some point in the future. The next two books that I have to talk about are actually books that were recommended by Aoife from Fred Weasley Died Laughing in her monthly recommendations videos for standalones. The first of those is Team Human by Sarah Reese Brennan and Justine LaBallestiere. And this book just sounds really interesting and like it's going to be really, really funny. I believe this is a parody of vampire, like teen vampire books, and it's supposed to be, I believe, really funny, and it just sounds really interesting, and the way Aoife talked about it just definitely made me want to pick this one up. And the second one that she spoke about is Only Ever Yours by Louise O'Neill. This is a book that I have been interested in for a while, as I am with all of Louise O'Neill's books, but I had never marked it as to read, and once I saw Aoife's recommendation video, I went ahead and marked it. This is a book that is set in kind of I guess it would be kind of a dystopian future where no girls are born naturally. Baby girls aren't born anymore, and so girls are kind of raised in these schools and trained to breed. I'm not really sure too much more details about it, but I've always heard really positive things about Louise O'Neill's books, and they all really intrigue me, and I would like to read all of her books at some point, so I definitely went ahead and marked this as to read once I saw it in Aoife's video. The next book I have to mention is Daughters of the Witching Hill by Mary Sherratt. This is a book that I actually just saw on my Pinterest, and the title really intrigued me, so I had a look at it on Goodreads, and it sounded really interesting. I believe this is a historical fiction that follows witches and like a family that involves witches. I don't know too many more details apart from that, but that was enough for me to mark it as to read. The next book I have to talk about is Ruined by Amy Tintera. This is a book that I saw Lainey from Ginger Reads Lainey talking about in a book haul, and it just sounded really intriguing. This is set in a fantasy world where I believe a girl's parents have been killed and her sister is kidnapped, and then in order to try and get her sister back, she ends up going to this kind of enemy kingdom and pretending to be the prince of that enemy kingdom's betrothed and marrying that prince in order to try get her kidnapped sister back. I don't know too much about it apart from that, but it just sounds really, really good, and I'm definitely hoping to pick it up at some point in the future. The next book I want to talk about is The Dark Days Club by Alison Goodman. This is another book that I didn't see anywhere specific, but that I've just seen going around BookTube a bit and sounds really, really good. This is a historical fiction story that deals with secret societies and demon hunting. Yes, please. The next book I marked as to read is one I saw on Tiffany from About to Read's channel in her fairy tale recommendations video, and that is Kill Me Softly by Sarah Cross. And I believe this is a Snow White retelling, if I'm not mistaken. And I just believe, I don't know too much about it apart from that it's a really dark fairy tale retelling from what I understand, and I don't know too much about it apart from that, as I've said, but Tiffany just had really good things to say about it. Obviously she was recommending it in that video and it really intrigued me, and so I definitely want to check it out at some point in the future. The next book I want to talk about is Out of Nowhere by Rebecca Phillips. Rebecca Phillips is an author who I really enjoy. I read a standalone book of hers last year that I got from NetGalley, which was called Baking Perfect. And then this year I've read her Just Yours trilogy, I believe it's called. And this is just the next book of hers that I want to check out. So I marked it as to read. This is just a contemporary fiction story, a YA contemporary fiction that follows a girl whose father died very suddenly. He suffered a brain aneurysm and died in front of her in the kitchen. She's obviously got some leftover issues. Following on from that, she has some hypochondria issues and some real anxiety issues. And it's just kind of about her and I believe a bit of a romance with a kind of a daredevil boy that she meets who's quite different from her. It doesn't sound, it sounds like quite typical YA contemporary, but I really do enjoy Rebecca Phillips and her writing, and she does normally pick like certain issues in her books and write about them really well. So I'm really excited to check this one out because I do really enjoy her as an author. The next book I marked as to read is Kaleidoscope Heart by Claire Contreras. This is a book that I actually saw on Let's Talk Books. I believe it was their March favorites video, and it just sounded really good. It is a new adult romance, I believe, that follows a girl who has some kind of relationship with her older brother's best friend. That is a trope that I really enjoy, and kind of as soon as I heard that that's kind of what it involved, I definitely wanted to check it out, and they had good things to say about the book, so I'm really excited to check that one out at some point as well. The next book I want to talk about is Everything Leads to You by Nina LaCour. This is a book that I have seen on BookTube previously, but the person who prompted me to mark it as to read was actually Cece from Problems of a Book Nerd. She reads a lot of LGBTQIA+ stories, and she had really, really good things to say about this one. I believe this deals with a female-female relationship, and the fact that she had really good things to say about it. And I have heard other good things about it, and it does just sound like a good story. I believe it follows a girl who works in set design or something like that in Hollywood, and it involves, like I said, a female-to-female relationship. And I think it has a mystery aspect as well, but I'm not 100% sure about that. But once CC recommended it, and I know that it has good representation for the LGBTQIA+ community, I was really excited to pick it up. The next book I marked as to read is The Forbidden Wish by Jessica Corey. This I actually I've seen it around a little bit, but I saw it on Thoughts on Tomes channel in her March wrap-up. This is a Aladdin retelling that follows a kind of world where the genie from Aladdin is a girl and she falls in love with Aladdin. Sam from Thoughts on Tomes really enjoyed it, and she had good things to say about it, and an Aladdin retelling sounds really exciting, so I definitely want to check this one out at some point. The next book is The Foxhole Court by Nora Sakovic. This is a book that I actually saw on Nicole Craswell's channel, and I believe again in her March wrap-up, and I don't really know too much about what this is about, but she had really good things to say about it. It's the first book in a series. I don't really know what it's about, so I can't tell you too much about it, but she had good things to say about it, and I know that I believe Mel from That Girl Bookworm has been reading it, so I'll be really interested to hear her thoughts as well, but it's definitely something that I want to check out more in the future. The next book I want to talk about is With Malice by Eileen Cook. This is a book that I saw on Kristen from Super Space Chicks channel, again in her March wrap-up. Wrap-ups is where I get a lot of these recommendations, in case you couldn't tell. This is a YA contemporary story that follows a girl who wakes up in the hospital and realizes that she cannot remember the last 6 weeks of her life. And in that 6 weeks, she was in Italy, I believe, on a kind of a school trip, and she was involved in a fatal accident that killed her best friend. It's about her trying to remember the last 6 weeks and what happened with her best friend, and was it really an accident, what went on, and it just sounds really great and definitely something I will enjoy. It actually kind of the synopsis gives me vibes of Dangerous Girls by Abigail Huss, kind of, and I love that book, so I really can't wait to check this one out. The next book is Walk on Earth, a Stranger by Rae Carson. This is a book that I just kind of stumbled into on Goodreads. I've heard a lot about it, but I realized I'd never marked it as to read, even though it's a book that I have really been wanting to pick up for a while. This is the first book, I believe, in a series, and it follows a girl who can sense gold in the earth, and it's set during the gold rush. And it just sounds really interesting. I believe it involves her kind of having to disguise herself as a boy, and she's obviously a sought-after commodity because of her ability to sense gold. So it just sounds really intriguing. I've heard really positive things about it, as well as Rae Carson's other series, so I definitely want to check this one out at some point. Next, we have All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Dewar. This is a book that was recommended to me on Goodreads by Mel from That Girl Bookworm. This is a book that I have, of course, heard a lot about, and I have wanted to pick up, but I'd never marked it as to read, so it was really great that Mel recommended it to me, so I could mark it as to read. This is a historical fiction set during World War II. I have begun to discover about myself that I really do enjoy historical fiction set during World War II. I loved The Book Thief, I loved The Nightingale, so I really do want to pick this up at some point. And the final book that I have to talk about is Without You by Saskia Sargensen. This is another book that was recommended to me on Goodreads, this time by Jade from Boho Bookworm. I believe this is a psychological thriller that follows a girl who his sister goes missing, is presumed drowned, and she doesn't believe that her sister drowned, and it just kind of follows that. It's set in the 80s in England, which I think is a really interesting setting, it sounded really good, and Jade recommended it to me, so I'm definitely look forward to getting to that at some point. So those were the 17 books that I marked as to read over the last month or so. As always, I will link all the booktubers that I mentioned down below, as well as a link to all of the books on Goodreads so that you guys can check them out and find out more about them and maybe mark them as to read yourselves. If you have any thoughts on any of these books, or you have any other books you want to recommend to me, I love getting recommendations, in case you couldn't tell. I would love to chat to you guys in the comments down below. Please like this video if you liked it. Please subscribe if you want to see more from my channel. But that's all I've got for this video today. Bye guys!